August 15, 1940, skies over southern England. A squadron of Spitfires cuts through the afternoon air, wings tight in a disciplined diamond formation. Below, Luftwaffe fighters streak toward them, engines screaming, confident in their speed and numbers. The British pilots do not panic. Each man knows his place, each aircraft a moving part of a single, calculated machine. Flight Lieutenant Arthur Jack Bennett scans the horizon, noting the approach of Messerschmitt Bf 109s. With a subtle adjustment, the squadron shifts, tilting the formation in a manner designed to confuse the enemy's targeting. As the German fighters dive, the RAF pilots execute their maneuver flawlessly. The diamond opens into an unexpected echelon, the Luftwaffe pilots misjudging angles and distances. Tracers streak past, but the Spitfires remain untouchable, their speed and positioning rendering the attackers' calculations useless. Every twist, every turn, is premeditated, a silent choreography honed through countless drills and experience. From above, the formation appears both unified and unpredictable, a single entity outsmarting a larger, confident force. In those tense moments, Britain's mastery of the skies is clear. Precision, discipline, and innovation combine, leaving the Luftwaffe bewildered and setting the stage for a tactical lesson that would redefine aerial combat in the Battle of Britain. By mid-1940, Britain faced a dire challenge in the air. The fall of France had left the Luftwaffe with unchallenged access to Western Europe, and the threat of invasion loomed over southern England. RAF Fighter Command, though outnumbered, relied on discipline, training, and innovation to counter Germany's formidable aerial forces. At the heart of Britain's defense was the development of tactics that maximized both pilot skill and aircraft capability. Among these innovations was a formation technique that would allow smaller squadrons to outmaneuver and outthink larger German flights, turning numerical disadvantage into a tactical advantage. British pilots underwent intensive training to perfect formation flying. Unlike solo engagements, these missions emphasized collective movement, timing, and mutual protection. Spitfires and Hurricanes, though agile individually, became exponentially more effective when coordinated in disciplined patterns. Each pilot had to maintain precise spacing, anticipate both the squadron's movements and enemy reactions, and adjust instinctively to threats. The diamond and echelon formations were not merely visual arrangements, they were tactical tools designed to manipulate the enemy's perception of speed, distance, and vulnerability. The Luftwaffe, confident in their superior numbers and aircraft, underestimated the sophistication of British coordination. German pilots expected chaotic or predictable responses but encountered something entirely different: formations that could split, merge, and pivot seamlessly, keeping the RAF squadron protected while simultaneously creating opportunities to strike. Ground observers and radar operators noted that British squadrons seemed to defy simple calculation, their maneuvers precise enough to foil even experienced Luftwaffe pilots. This tactical innovation extended beyond the cockpit. RAF leadership emphasized intelligence, briefing pilots on enemy tendencies, preferred attack angles, and weaknesses in German flight doctrine. The combination of skill, planning, and innovation allowed small RAF formations to challenge larger Luftwaffe groups, sometimes doubling their effective firepower while minimizing exposure. By exploiting angles, spacing, and timing, British pilots could force German adversaries into making mistakes, misjudging trajectories, or overcommitting in attacks. These formation techniques became central to Britain's defensive strategy during the Battle of Britain. Rather than relying on brute force or superior numbers, RAF pilots used coordination and timing to dictate engagements. Each sortie became a calculated exercise in anticipation, where pilots moved as a single, responsive unit rather than independent combatants. This approach allowed Britain to sustain air defense against a technically formidable opponent, demonstrating that innovation and discipline could rival numerical superiority in the skies above England. The success of these early formations set the stage for encounters that would test both the ingenuity of British pilots and the adaptability of the Luftwaffe. Each mission revealed the growing advantage of coordinated tactics, the importance of discipline under fire, and the psychological impact of outsmarting a confident and experienced enemy. These lessons would culminate in decisive engagements where a single formation maneuver would redefine aerial combat. As the summer of 1940 progressed, RAF squadrons faced repeated Luftwaffe attacks over southern England. Fighter Command quickly recognized that raw skill and aircraft performance alone could not guarantee survival against superior numbers. The development of coordinated formation tactics became essential. Squadrons experimented with diamond, echelon, and line abreast formations, analyzing how small adjustments could manipulate enemy perception and create firing advantages. Pilots trained relentlessly, simulating attacks, practicing wingman coordination, and perfecting the timing of maneuvers. Every movement had a purpose: protection, deception, or positioning for a decisive counterattack. Aircraft modifications complemented these tactics. Spitfires were lightened and tuned for maneuverability, while Hurricanes were deployed to hold defensive lines and bait enemy attacks. Pilots learned to exploit the performance characteristics of their planes within the formation, using speed bursts, altitude changes, and synchronized turns to maximize both offense and defense. This synergy between aircraft and formation allowed small RAF squadrons to operate as highly adaptable units, capable of responding to dynamic threats and outmaneuvering the Luftwaffe in ways that larger, less coordinated groups could not anticipate. German pilots, initially confident in their superior numbers and training, were unprepared for these formations. Observers reported bewilderment at the precise movement of RAF squadrons, noting how the British seemed to anticipate attacks and reposition effortlessly. Luftwaffe doctrine, based on larger formations and rigid engagement patterns, struggled to adapt to the British approach. Each encounter reinforced the effectiveness of disciplined coordination, as German pilots found themselves misjudging angles, exposing themselves to return fire, or overextending in futile pursuit. These encounters demonstrated the dual impact of Britain's formation tactics, operational and psychological. The Luftwaffe's confidence eroded as they faced small, disciplined squadrons capable of controlling engagements and inflicting damage without exposing themselves unduly. For RAF pilots, repeated success built morale and reinforced the value of training, communication, and tactical innovation. The formation trick was no longer an experimental tactic, it had become a defining feature of Britain's air defense strategy, laying the groundwork for the decisive engagements that would determine the outcome of the Battle of Britain. The precision, discipline, and ingenuity of these formations were a testament to Britain's approach to aerial warfare. Small units, properly trained and coordinated, could outsmart a superior enemy, and the lessons learned from these early encounters would prove crucial in shaping the tactics that allowed RAF pilots to dominate in critical moments. These foundations now lead directly into the multiple dimensions of skill, strategy, and impact explored in the Angles section. The success of Britain's formation tactics depended first and foremost on pilot skill. RAF airmen were trained to anticipate not only enemy movements but also the actions of their own squadron members. Each pilot had to maintain exact spacing, adjust constantly for speed, altitude, and wind, and react instinctively to both threats and opportunities. Precision was paramount. A single misjudged turn could disrupt the entire formation, exposing fellow pilots to enemy fire. Flight Lieutenant Arthur Bennett and his peers spent countless hours in simulations, drills, and live exercises, cultivating muscle memory and mental reflexes that allowed them to operate as a seamless unit. Courage was also essential. Pilots had to maintain composure while performing high-risk maneuvers under the pressure of enemy attack, trusting both their own skill and the reliability of their squadron. Britain's tactical innovation lay in the deliberate manipulation of formations. The diamond, echelon, and line abreast patterns were carefully chosen to confuse and control the enemy. In a diamond formation, for example, the lead aircraft guided the wingmen, allowing the squadron to pivot in multiple directions simultaneously. The Luftwaffe often misjudged the spacing and orientation of these formations, calculating attack vectors based on false assumptions. Adjustments in altitude, banking angles, and staggered positioning created optical illusions that made it difficult for German pilots to identify the number of aircraft or the safest approach. These formations were flexible, enabling RAF squadrons to split and regroup as needed, presenting both defensive strength and offensive opportunity in a single coordinated unit. German pilots consistently struggled to counter these maneuvers. Observers reported confusion as RAF formations appeared to shift unpredictably yet remained coordinated. The Luftwaffe's expectations of predictable flight patterns were repeatedly thwarted, leading to overextension, miscalculation, and vulnerability. Experienced German aces were often forced into reactive engagements, overcommitting to an attack only to find themselves flanked or exposed. Reports noted that the British not only avoided damage but created openings for counterattacks, leaving German forces both frustrated and psychologically taxed. This growing disbelief in the reliability of Luftwaffe responses reinforced the RAF's advantage. The formation trick functioned not only as a physical tactic but also as a tool to undermine enemy confidence, shaping the dynamics of the air battle before any shots were fired. Formation tactics were amplified by the technological capabilities of RAF aircraft. Spitfires and Hurricanes, carefully tuned for speed and maneuverability, allowed pilots to execute sharp turns, sudden climbs, and coordinated pivots without losing cohesion. The aircraft's responsive controls and robust performance enabled formations to remain tight under pressure, avoiding fragmentation during intense Luftwaffe attacks. In addition, radar and ground-based early warning systems provided critical intelligence on incoming enemy formations, allowing squadrons to position themselves advantageously before engagement. Aircraft modifications, including stripped weight for agility and upgraded weaponry, ensured that pilots could maximize both defensive and offensive potential within the formation, turning every maneuver into a precise tactical advantage. RAF leadership played a pivotal role in refining and deploying the formation trick. Commanders emphasized communication, discipline, and situational awareness, instilling a culture where coordination was as important as individual skill. Briefings detailed enemy tendencies, expected flight paths, and contingencies for split-second adjustments. Squadron leaders, such as Wing Commander Douglas Bader, practiced direct oversight, flying with their units to guide maneuvers and respond dynamically to Luftwaffe movements. These decisions ensured that formations were not static but adaptive, capable of exploiting openings and neutralizing threats. Leadership created the environment in which pilots could execute complex maneuvers with confidence, trusting in both the squadron's cohesion and the strategic guidance from command. The formation trick had a profound psychological impact on German pilots. Luftwaffe observers frequently reported frustration and disbelief when British squadrons shifted formations mid-engagement, avoiding attacks with apparent foresight. The German expectation of predictable patterns was repeatedly challenged, causing hesitation and miscalculations. For RAF pilots, the technique reinforced confidence and morale. Executing a maneuver that consistently outsmarted the enemy bolstered a sense of control in chaotic air battles. This dual effect, demoralizing opponents while empowering friendly forces, magnified the tactical value of formation flying beyond physical positioning. It became a force multiplier, shaping both the conduct of aerial engagements and the perception of British dominance in the skies. September 15, 1940, the Battle of Britain, skies over Kent. The afternoon sun glinted off the wings of a dozen Spitfires flying in perfect diamond formation. Flight Lieutenant Arthur Bennett led the squadron, aware of the approaching Luftwaffe strike force. Dozens of Messerschmitt Bf 109s and Bf 110s closed in from the east, engines roaring with confidence. German pilots expected chaos and disorganization, but what they encountered was precision. The RAF formation, compact yet flexible, twisted and pivoted in coordinated movements that obscured their numbers and angles of attack. As the Luftwaffe dived, the diamond expanded into a staggered echelon, a maneuver designed to mislead enemy targeting and create firing lanes for the Spitfires. German pilots, trained to calculate trajectories based on predictable formations, misjudged distances, exposing themselves to counterfire. Tracers sliced through the sky, Yet British pilots remained untouchable, their collective discipline transforming the squadron into a single, adaptive entity. Each maneuver was a pre-planned counter, a silent choreography honed through months of drills and sorties. The psychological impact on the Luftwaffe was immediate. Pilots hesitated, overcorrected, and collided with the unpredictable geometry of the British formations. Ground-based observers reported that Spitfires appeared to be in multiple places at once, their movements too precise to track. Meanwhile, RAF gunners exploited openings, downing enemy aircraft with accuracy that seemed impossible to German eyes. In less than an hour, the formation tactic had neutralized a numerical advantage, leaving the Luftwaffe disorganized and retreating. This engagement marked a turning point in the aerial campaign. The RAF's use of formation maneuvers demonstrated that skill, discipline, and tactical innovation could outweigh superior numbers. British squadrons were no longer merely defending, they were dictating the terms of engagement. Each successful maneuver reinforced the principle that a well-executed formation could confuse, outmaneuver, and dominate the enemy, shaping the outcome of the Battle of Britain itself. The success of September 15 would ripple through subsequent operations, teaching both the RAF and the Luftwaffe critical lessons about coordination, perception, and the decisive power of innovation in aerial combat. The stage was set for continued tactical mastery, where formation, skill, and strategy would define dominance in the skies over England. September 16 to 20, 1940, consolidating RAF supremacy. In the days following the decisive maneuvers over Kent, RAF squadrons continued to exploit their formation tactics. Smaller flights, often outnumbered 2-1, engaged Luftwaffe fighters with a confidence born of discipline and coordination. Pilots like Flight Lieutenant Bennett and squadron leader Douglas Bader became emblematic of this approach, leading squadrons that could pivot, expand, and contract in midair, presenting a constantly shifting challenge to German attackers. Each sortie reinforced the psychological and tactical advantage that formation flying provided. On September 17, a squadron of Hurricanes intercepted a larger group of Bf-109s approaching coastal radar stations. The British pilots executed a staggered echelon formation, creating an optical illusion that overestimated the number of aircraft and misdirected enemy targeting. German pilots misjudged angles of approach, exposing themselves to concentrated defensive fire while struggling to coordinate among themselves. The result: several Luftwaffe aircraft were downed without the RAF suffering a single loss. Reports from both pilots and ground controllers noted the near impossibility of countering such precision with conventional attack patterns. Leadership decisions amplified the effect. RAF command deliberately rotated squadrons to maintain fatigue levels and maximize operational efficiency. Briefings included detailed intelligence on expected enemy formations, predicted attack vectors, and contingency responses. By combining meticulous planning with tactical innovation, leadership ensured that formation maneuvers were not isolated tricks but a systemic advantage across multiple engagements. Pilots understood both their role and the broader strategy, enhancing cohesion and effectiveness in battle. The Luftwaffe, repeatedly confronted with unpredictable but coordinated formations, began to lose initiative. Hesitation, miscalculation, and overextension became common, eroding both morale and tactical efficiency. German pilots reported frustration and disbelief, often questioning the reliability of their instruments and training when faced with RAF squadrons that seemed to defy conventional air combat logic. The combination of skill, maneuvering, and leadership had transformed the Battle of Britain into a contest of anticipation and control, with the RAF dictating engagement terms despite being outnumbered. By September 20, the cumulative effect of these engagements was undeniable. RAF squadrons had demonstrated that formation mastery could neutralize numerical superiority, disrupt enemy tactics, and secure control of critical airspace. The single formation trick, refined through training and leadership guidance, had become a cornerstone of Britain's air defense strategy, proving that discipline, coordination, and innovation could decisively outsmart even a confident and experienced opponent. These decisive days set the stage for analyzing the broader consequences and aftermath of Britain's tactical ingenuity. The immediate consequences of Britain's formation tactics were dramatic. The Luftwaffe, once confident in their superiority, faced repeated setbacks that eroded morale and operational efficiency. German pilots reported frustration as RAF squadrons executed maneuvers that consistently outsmarted them, forcing overextensions and miscalculations. Ground-based observers noted the British aircraft appeared to move unpredictably yet remained coordinated, a phenomenon that German doctrine had not anticipated. Losses mounted, not solely from firepower but from misjudged attacks on formations that seemed to defy conventional targeting methods. For the RAF, these successes validated months of rigorous training, innovation, and planning. Pilots understood that skill and coordination could compensate for numerical disadvantage, and their confidence grew with each successful engagement. Commanders leveraged this advantage strategically, planning sorties based on the formation's proven ability to manipulate enemy perception. The combination of discipline, leadership, and tactical ingenuity became a force multiplier, allowing the RAF to achieve air superiority without needing overwhelming numbers. The tactical advantage also reshaped engagement strategies. Fighter command integrated formation maneuvers into daily operations, ensuring squadrons could defend critical sectors while inflicting maximum disruption on enemy formations. Pilots executing these maneuvers became examples for others, creating a culture where discipline, communication, and anticipation were as crucial as individual flying skill. The effectiveness of the formation trick was no longer an isolated occurrence, it became a core principle of British aerial strategy during the Battle of Britain. Beyond the immediate tactical gains, the psychological impact on the Luftwaffe was significant. Pilots were forced to reconsider assumptions about British capabilities and reliability, instilling hesitation in attacks and undermining confidence. Each encounter reinforced the perception that the RAF could dictate engagements, leaving German forces reactive rather than proactive. Britain had achieved a subtle but decisive form of dominance, control not just of airspace, but of the tempo, flow, and perception of battle. The lessons of these engagements would resonate in subsequent operations, demonstrating that innovation and coordination could redefine the balance of power in aerial combat. The formation trick had become more than a maneuver, it was a strategic tool shaping both the physical and psychological dimensions of the Battle of Britain. The long-term effects of the RAF's formation tactics extended far beyond immediate victories. German commanders repeatedly encountered squadrons that seemed to anticipate their every move, leading to a growing sense of vulnerability. Luftwaffe pilots struggled to adapt to the flexibility and precision of British formations, finding that conventional approaches often led to exposure and loss. Reports from the front emphasized frustration and disbelief, as even experienced German aces found it difficult to counter the British maneuvering. This erosion of confidence had strategic consequences, forcing the Luftwaffe to rethink tactics and divert resources to defensive measures that could not fully mitigate the threat. For Britain, the sustained success of these maneuvers reinforced operational doctrine. Fighter command integrated formation tactics into all major engagements, ensuring that squadrons could operate cohesively under pressure. Pilots trained to anticipate both the enemy and their own units' movements, creating a level of coordination that multiplied their effectiveness in combat. The result was a persistent tactical advantage, allowing smaller British squadrons to engage larger enemy forces with confidence, precision, and minimal loss. This capability became a hallmark of IAF operations, demonstrating that disciplined coordination could outweigh numerical inferiority. The psychological impact on both sides was equally significant. British pilots gained confidence and morale from consistently executing maneuvers that confounded the enemy, while German pilots faced mounting stress, hesitation, and operational uncertainty. This dual effect, enhancing friendly morale while undermining enemy confidence, amplified the formation tactics' value beyond the purely physical dimension of air combat. Leadership recognized this synergy, using it to plan missions that maximized the psychological as well as the tactical advantage. In the broader context of the Battle of Britain, these successes cemented the RAF's reputation as a disciplined, innovative, and dominant force in the skies. Formation tactics demonstrated that skill, coordination, and strategic insight could define outcomes even against technically and numerically superior opponents. The lessons learned during these engagements would influence IAF doctrine, aircraft design, and pilot training for the remainder of the war, leaving a legacy of tactical ingenuity that reshaped aerial warfare and contributed decisively to Britain's defensive success. The story of Britain's formation tactics during the Battle of Britain illustrates a fundamental truth of warfare. Mastery is not always measured in numbers or firepower, but in discipline, coordination, and the intelligent application of strategy. The RAF's ability to outsmart the Luftwaffe with a single formation maneuver demonstrates how innovation, skill, and leadership can combine to create a decisive advantage. Pilots executed complex maneuvers under extreme pressure, transforming small squadrons into cohesive units capable of controlling engagements and dictating outcomes. Each turn, pivot, and shift was calculated, creating illusions that confused the enemy while maximizing offensive and defensive potential. For German pilots, these tactics were both perplexing and demoralizing. Repeated encounters with formations that seemed to anticipate their every move eroded confidence, disrupted timing, and exposed vulnerabilities. The psychological impact of encountering an opponent who could simultaneously protect and threaten forced a re-evaluation of conventional doctrine. Meanwhile, British pilots gained assurance in the effectiveness of their training and coordination, reinforcing morale and operational confidence. Formation flying was thus more than a tactical maneuver, it was a strategic tool that shaped perception, behavior, and the very flow of aerial combat. The legacy of this innovation extends beyond the skies of 1940. It highlighted the critical importance of preparation, discipline, and communication in modern warfare, setting a precedent for aerial tactics that would influence generations of military operations. The RAF's integration of human skill, leadership, and technological capability into a single, adaptive system exemplifies how strategy can multiply the effectiveness of even a smaller force. Ultimately, Britain's formation maneuver stands as a testament to ingenuity, training, and the power of cohesion under pressure. By outthinking a confident adversary, the RAF demonstrated that dominance in combat often stems from knowledge, anticipation, and execution rather than sheer numbers. The disbelief and frustration experienced by German pilots underscore the enduring principle that innovation, when combined with discipline and skill, can redefine the battlefield and secure victory even against formidable opposition.